The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but underneath are ravenous wolves. By their fruits you will know them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Just so, every good tree bears good fruit, and a rotten tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a rotten tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. So by their fruits you will know them." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
On Monday, when we began the weekdays of the 12th week of the year, we turned from the letters of St. Paul in the first reading to the Old Testament and the story of Abraham in the book of Genesis. We'll begin with the story of Abraham, but now we're going to stay in the Old Testament for 9 weeks. So we won't be back to the letters of St. Paul till probably near the end of August. But we will hear the whole story from Abraham all the way until the people enter the promised land. But Abraham, of course, stands as the great father of faith for us all. He has been given the promise, but he has not yet been given the land. His descendants will be given the land, but he's been given the promise. And in that way, he's so much like us, isn't he? We have been given the promise, but we don't quite yet have the land. But we are a little more blessed because we have Jesus, who has already established his kingdom in our midst, and it is growing, but we will possess it in its fullness when we reach the promised land of heaven. So the parallels are unmistakable, but the key energy, the key ingredient, of course, is faith and Abraham's disposition before God as he trusts and relies on all that God promises, despite all the unreasonableness of it. I'm 75 years old, I don't have any children. What are you talking about, descendants? Abraham still had faith, and we'll see the remarkable nature of his faith unfold as the story unfolds. In the Gospel, we continue with Matthew's Gospel now, coming to the conclusion of the Sermon on the Mount, where he warns us about making sure that we are good judges of the world and the people around us, and the most effective evidence we have is actions, the actions of one another. And our actions must come from the very core of our being, that it's from the very goodness that dwells within that goodness flows. And if our inner being is evil, it's very difficult to do good, maybe temporarily play acting, but the key is to make sure that we are from the inside out holy and seeking the goodness that God created us to be. There will always be a tension, of course, between good and evil. Original sin still has its effect in the world, but as St. Paul reminded us before we left him in the letter to the Romans, that grace is always stronger than evil. Grace is always stronger than sin, but we need to open ourselves up to that grace. So we live our lives now on this great feast of St. Irenaeus, whose very name means peace, striving for peace in our world, opening ourselves to lives of faith and praying that God will make us good from the very core of our being, that good will result in the fruits of our lives.